We actually have to get to sit closer together now. Usually, we have a guest in between us, but for some reason we decided to go back to a throwback era. Maybe because it was the topic today. It only takes one person to pick up and another to deliver.
Our group does not like pick up and deliver games. All right. Welcome to Eternally Bored, episode 19. This episode delivers. Today we're going to be discussing pick up and deliver games, and we're going to go through our top 3. The reason we chose this genre that our group pretty much hates is because I actually am releasing a game on Kickstarter. It's probably on Kickstarter when you see this episode. So just look for Eternally Bored. This is the podcast.
Look for Eternally Bored. You can look for that. But you can also look for Imperial Spells and Steam by Level 99 Games.
Yes. It should be on Kickstarter, so check it out. It's a pick up and deliver game set in a fantasy world and has really cool abilities, and you can customize your player board to give yourself unique actions. I don't know. It's a really interesting game. Check it out. But before we get to the topic du jour of talking about pick up and deliver games, I also want to give a shout out to Board Game Gumbo. Board Game Gumbo is a podcast on our network, Punchboard Media. They were kind enough to give us a shout out, and so I wanted to return the favor. Thank you to the host, BJ. He's a really cool guy, and he really specializes in interviewing people from the industry. Like, he's interviewed Jamie Stagmeyer and Undead Viking and Ted Alspach. So if you like hearing people from the industry talk about it, talk about their games, talk about just various things, because he also interviews media personalities as well, definitely check out his podcast. That's Board Game Gumbo. And then you might wonder why we don't have guests, and that's because we also publish this on YouTube, and I'm sure there's a way I can have a little window down in the corner of a Skype person talking. So maybe one day when I figure out how to make that work, it'll happen. But for now, no guests, just me and Charles and whoever we can badger on.
Eventually we'll be on Twitch and live stream, but
yeah,
till that day.
Baby steps. All right, so on to the topic du jour, pick up and deliver games. So what, in your opinion, makes a good pick up and deliver game?
Generally, when you're dealing with pick up and deliver, you're doing very simple things over and over again. So the most important thing is the very simple basic action you're doing actually enjoyable? Probably the reason it gets so much flack is because a lot of people don't like the monotony that can be found just from going from point A to point B. But the better you make that enjoyable, the better the pick up and deliver game is going to actually be.
Yeah, so most games do it by just adding a little something extra, like the 18xx games add the stock market and the powers that you draft at the beginning of the round. The games like Xayah and Firefly have the whole we're in space, and so there's space combat and things like that. Merchant of Venus also in space, but not as much combat. But so generally they have to have something extra to make it interesting, because just going from point A to point B and delivering goods is not really going to be exciting, right?
Exactly. And I mean, I think the best games in the genre, the whole reason they're usually very thematic. The whole reason this genre is usually associated with trains and things of that nature is because at least it was really done back in the day. Trains went somewhere, they picked it up, and then they delivered something else. You've also seen it adapted into space games as well, because a lot of our far off future has either smuggling or just pure transportation or dealing with a mercantile economy between worlds. So that's a little bit, and it's more analogous back to the trains. But basically, if you have a good reason to travel, then you actually have a good theme for pick up and deliver, and most people are willing to move onward and play the game at that point.
Right. So theme is usually very important. Or just adding something to the mechanics, and besides just having a pure pick up and deliver game. Can you even think of a pure pick up and deliver game? I'm trying to think. I can't really.
I mean, you've built up whole genres of it. I mean, technically 18xx was born out of the fact that people wanted the pure, everything with trains, but without picking up and deliver. So it really is not. I think the Crown Rails games,
yes,
that I really like quite a bit, are pure pick up and deliver.
Well, those add network building, though, and I think that's what makes those games interesting. I think actually Istanbul might be the purest, because in that game you're literally just going from place to place, delivering goods to fulfill contracts and get gems. So that might be the purest one, come to think of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the Crown Rails are a little bit more pure. I guess you could have also. I've seen a few games where, I mean, that's all they try to do is pick up and deliver. But I guess that doesn't work. You're right. It's hard to separate it from the mechanic. Even when we were looking at the games that carried it, it looked to be more of a. It's like a mechanic so old. It's like dice rolling. What's the best dice rolling game? And then there's so many variations of it. You can't just figure out one in particular. So
I'd like to try a Crown Rails game again without events, because I've only played Crown Rails games once, and I was having a lot of fun until like a random event came out, and like my train was just like stuck for an entire turn. It was basically like, haha, you lose a turn for no reason, just a random card draw, and I was like, all right, this game is not for me. But I've heard you can play them without the events, so maybe I would enjoy it more, because to me the fun was like building my network.
yeah, specifically, you're thinking of something like a derailment. And this was something that really happened, and a lot of times the derailments are random.
It was thematic, sure.
Yeah, and I've had
not fun.
yeah, I've had it work with those Crown Rail games before, where you just affect the movement area, which makes it a little bit more fair, where you do half movement. What was it? I was trying to think. You were talking about pure pick up and deliver games, and it's just off the head of my book. It has 2 expansions. It was I think a Tony Boydell game.
Was it a train game?
And it was a train game, and there was like cards around the board in the
Snowdonia?
Snowdonia, yeah.
Okay. That's also a worker placement game.
Yeah, some worker placement.
So yeah, that's what they added onto that, which is actually getting a reprint, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably rebuy that game because, depending on how good second edition is, I really enjoyed that one. Okay, so what would you say are the pros and cons of the genre? We'll start with the good things. What is satisfying about a pick up and deliver game?
I mean, most pick up and deliver games have some sort of race mechanic on it. You're looking for a goal that you're trying to get to. So the thrill of the race to build up either your network or your system, or just to be more efficient than everybody else at delivering and fulfilling your contracts.
That's a good point. Those games are very tense, because like when you see someone building to where you need to go, you're like, oh, if they build there before I get there, like my whole plan is destroyed and I've wasted all this investment. So I think there's a lot of tension built up into the systems just by default. I mean, like even going to something like Istanbul, it doesn't even need network building, but like in Istanbul, if like you're going to fulfill a contract on the board, but if someone else fulfills it first, it flips over and then there's a new demand, and then you might not have the goods to fulfill it. So like I think a lot of these pick up and deliver games have a lot of built-in tension, because it's a race to get that delivery before someone else does.
Mm-hmm. And thwarting someone's strategy, blocking, I'm not sure if that's part of the race as well, but a lot of people who really enjoy pick up and deliver enjoy being able to make it harder, trying to find a more efficient route, or make you pay them for going through the direction that they just crossed in front of you. In order to garner extra income. Some people really like that. That's also a con of the game.
Yeah. Well, it's negative player interaction, but to me, it's okay, because it's not like just because. It's like you wanted to also build that route, so you were like in direct competition. And so like, I think that's fine. It's akin to like placing your worker where you wanted to go in a worker placement game, and it has the side effect of, oh, this person also can't go where they wanted to go. So to me, that's okay. It's not like take that, like random take that is the kind of take that I don't like in games like that.
And I also feel that a pro is that they are very good introductory level games as well.
Except for like 18xs.
Except for 18xs. Obviously 18xs, but that's more like the counter. But most pick up and deliver games, you can tell people, go here, get this, take it there. And they pretty much get it. And no matter how many rules you add on top of that system, the basic quest mechanic, or pick up and deliver mechanic of a game is pretty easily for even the newest gamers to go and comprehend. And it also, like many of the great games that are simple to teach and learn, belies a great bit of strategy. And I guess that would lead us to our cons, which is, my first con is that if you play someone who's played a pick it up and deliver game more than you are going to get demolished. Yeah.
Especially if it has a static map.
Yeah.
It's they'll know all the tricks, all the like. For instance, playing games in the Steam family or the 18xx family. Actually, I haven't played an 18xx game, but I've played games in the Steam family like Railroad Tycoon.
We have played that game with Astro. It was like 7 years ago.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't even remember. Put it that way. So if you, like, a lot of those maps are static maps, right? So, like, if someone has played that map before, then they've already built networks across this map, and so, like, they probably already know the efficient way to do it. So I'm not shy about asking people, like, if I'm playing an 18xx game or any kind of, like, game with a static map, I'll always ask the veterans at the table, like, hey, you know, what's the most efficient route from here to here? And then they can usually, like, point out the terrain and be like, you know, don't go here because it's extra expensive and it's a longer route. So, you know, I would say don't be shy to ask people who have played the map before if you're playing a static map game. And that actually goes to other genres besides pick up and deliver, but very important in pick up and deliver games.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the reason why I could almost make this con 1 and 2, people hate pick up and deliver games for the simple reason that, you know, the number of plays and your experience level at pick up and deliver really does impact and transfer through every other game of that type that you'll see. And a lot of the pick up and deliver games, because so few of them are very popular, you know, we were looking through the list and it's just like, all right, the Rail system, which is Crown Rails, has probably like 30 games in that genre. The Steam game probably has about 40 expansions of the genre. Yeah. You have the Railroad Tycoon, and then that has, you know, proliferated another, like, you know, 5 to 10 expansion maps and another whole system and game. And all the skills between the games just transfers directly. And, you know, new players don't really like that, because the person who's showing them the game is going to generally devastate them.
Yeah, especially the older ones, like the old 18xx games, like those are just brutal for new players, and they can actually be eliminated pretty early if they make some bad investments. So definitely ask friends for help if you're playing those games for the first time.
Do you have any other cons that you can think of?
I really kind of enjoy in most pick up and deliver games. There's one huge exception on my list, but I enjoy like the network, like getting your network set up more than the actual pick up and deliver. So to me, that's what entices me to the game. Like the whole pick up and deliver thing is interesting in that it adds tension. It's like, I want to make this delivery before you, so that makes the game more interesting. But in itself, pick up and deliver is not usually that intriguing to me. So, you know, when I designed Imperial, I added a whole bunch of extra stuff to it. It's way beyond just a simple pick up and deliver. You know, you have its action selection, and you can customize those actions by building up your train in different ways. You can get specialists that help your company and give you special bonuses. So there's just a lot of different layers that I added on to Imperial, so that it's not just you know, a simple exercise. So I guess the con for me is like the act of just picking up and delivering is kind of simplistic and not intriguing on its own, but there are ways you can add things onto it to make it interesting.
Well, when you were designing Imperial, like, did you go out and say, I really want to have pick up and deliver as the mechanic, or did you sort of design some other mechanics and then say, you know, pick up and deliver work perfectly here?
It was more like pick up and deliver was a means to an end. You know, I had to have a way to score points. And what I focused on, especially in the early iterations of the game, was the network building. So, you know, that was my design focus. And the pick up deliver was pretty simplistic. It was kind of very similar to like Steam, where you just see the cities with different goods in the beginning of the game, and then you deliver demands, and that was it. But and that's still sort of similar to how it works now, but it's a little different. Now it's like you pick them up from the map, so you have to. So it's kind of like married to the network building, because you actually get the cubes off the map, and so you're building your network on the map, and the goods are found within your network, and so, you know, it just kind of married the two, network building with pick up and deliver, into so it's not like I network build and then use that network to deliver. It's more like my network is my delivery system, and the cubes are already there, and then I just send them on. So
okay, so you don't actually, was one of the things you tried to get away from, because one of the cons is that people, when they're doing the network, it's like, well, my network is everywhere, but I'm still over here. So even though I built something on the northwest side of the map, I have to travel all the way to the southeast and then take it all the way to the northwest or something.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the cities are kind of spread out, so you will have to like move around, but you're not forced to deliver a certain colored good. So like there are valid strategies in the game where you can just sit in an area and really like monopolize that one area, or you can spread out. I try to build in that variance where there's multiple strategies. You don't have to just sit in one area, or you don't have to branch out, or you can do a hybrid of the two. So,
Which leads me to another con of pickup and delivery, and a lot of times people just don't know where stuff is, and some of the other games, and we're Americans, so our geography is bad. So some games that I played have had areas on the map, certain cities that were good during a certain era that people just don't really know geographically where they are. Sometimes that's a big deal, sometimes it's not, especially when you're trying to pick up from a specific area that has a resource. People find it find it distressing that they have to analyze this map and then learn all these places and go somewhere new.
Yeah. In Imperial, it's a modular map, so that adds overhead because you have to analyze the map every game. You can't memorize a route, but that also kind of balances out for new players. Is that the old players at least don't have that advantage over them. They'll understand the game more and be able to manipulate the mechanics maybe better, but they'll have no map advantage, as it were, because the map's different every game. So
did you color code the items then? So what the goods that you delivering a yellow colored good to a yellow colored planet or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for instance, the deserts produce the yellow good, so you build track to the desert, and then there's a yellow city that demands the yellow goods, so you also need to build to that yellow city.
And once you make the connection, is it just you have to move something in between, or does it sort of automatically?
It's basically this is getting a little detail into the mechanics, but if you go to the Kickstarter, you can see Let's Play videos, and you can see how this all plays out. But basically, you have a train on your player board, and you can customize this train, and each space in your train gives you different actions, and you can add train cars to it to give you different abilities. But you have to keep moving from left to right, and once you reach the end of your train, which is the caboose, that's when you make your delivery.
Okay.
And you can choose how fast you want to move along your train. So if you want to take a lot of actions to set up for a big delivery, you can do that. Or you can rush to the end every time and just keep making deliveries as fast as possible. So there's, again, a lot of different strategies, a lot of different choices. So hopefully people will enjoy it.
On the Kickstarter, probably when this link goes up.
Yeah.
All right.
Check it out. Let's go top 3.
Sure.
Honorable mentions?
You know what? I do have an honorable mention. My first honorable mention was Mint Delivery, which is a game where you have... Basically, it's a pick up and deliver game that's supposed to fit inside of a mint tin, like an Altoids tin or something of that nature.
Related to Mintworks, I'm guessing?
Yes, it's from the same company that made Mintworks.
I know about Mintworks. I've never heard of Mint Delivery.
Yeah, Mint Delivery was... I actually saw it at this year's BGG Con, and I thought it was going to be fairly good. I was looking for the Kickstarter. I think possibly I might have missed it, maybe not. But basically, what you do is you... it is a very standard, quick pick-up and delivery game where you have different areas on the map. It's been a while since I played it, and I wasn't able to find it for review. But the general gist of it is that you can play the entire pick-up and delivery game in about 25 minutes out of the 10. Mm-hmm. And you can just set it up with cards, and then you move to different places. You have a mint truck that can hold up to 5 mints.
and you play this?
Yeah, I did play it.
Oh, you also like that Heartland game, right?
That's actually on my...
Oh, it's on... Oh, yeah. Sorry. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So go ahead with your honorable mention.
So I looked at Pickup and Delivery under BGG just to see, what the top rated games were. And Pandemic Legacy Season 2 was listed. I don't feel like this is a Pickup and Deliver game, even though, yes, you technically do pick up cubes and you do deliver them to cities, but they really just reverse the normal pandemic thing where you go to different cities and you kill the viruses. Now you go to different cities and you add defense. But it doesn't really feel like a pick-up and deliver game. But I'm going to give it an honorable mention anyway, because I guess it's technically one, and it's a pretty good game. It's not as good as Season 1.
Honestly, I did enjoy that aspect of it. I really didn't even notice because I was just thinking, oh, it's Inverse Pandemic, and Inverse Pandemic is pick up and deliver, ironically. So, I did have a good time with it. The reason he probably doesn't notice it as much is because he was part of the card transfer crew, whereas I was part of the
that is true.
Cube.
he was the entire Cube engine. He just went around and defended everything, and the rest of us did other stuff.
Yeah, so I had the pure medic duties of getting stuff around. I was trying to, coordinate with other people. I basically had to make them do things when I couldn't get there.
Yeah.
Especially one of our partners who is contrary to say the least.
It's like having a traitor on your team in a pure co-op.
He does love social deduction. Maybe one day we'll get him on camera to talk about the social deduction episode.
It's never gonna happen.
Maybe
he'll be off camera. Yeah, we might have a guy sitting off camera talking about games one day. But all right, Xia is on the list for me. I thought it was a really good game. Not really. To me, it was kind of like the same problem as Fallout. It was too much an experience game and not enough strategy. I would love to play a pure strategic space exploration game that is, obviously it's going to have some luck and some random factors, but not as heavily on the luck and the randomness as, Xia or Firefly. But I did enjoy Firefly, and I did enjoy Xia. I think Xia is probably a little bit better. It's a little more mechanically sound. But it also was like, when you roll a nat 20 on your D20 in Xia, you get a victory point, and you only need like a very small amount of victory points to win. So like just little random things like that. Like why? You already got a 20 on the die, so you already succeeded whatever die roll you were making. Do you need a victory point on top of that?
Yeah, we were talking about this.
Like...
I mean, the drift system is much more of an experience, and it's much more of a thing that people like to get together and mod to make the perfect game. I'm sure somewhere out there is the perfect mod for it.
But
I'll
still give it an honorable mention. It had some solid mechanics, and I had fun. So,
and my final honorable mention is like 76, but please don't quote me on this. This is when people tried to get me out of Pick Up and Deliver to do some 18xx games. I like, this is not really Pick Up and Deliver, but it is generally where people go, just because of the train motif. And I would say that there are many 18xx games. We are not experts on them at all, but I would recommend going to the 18xx channel and learning more from there.
Yeah, if you enjoy Pick Up and Deliver, those are supposed to be like the zenith of Pick Up and Deliver games.
And stock and market manipulation and many other things. But let's go to our top three. And at number 3, I have the Great Heartland Hauling Company. This is a game that I really enjoy quite a bit. You basically have a big rig that you're taking around to various cities that are on the map with cards. Everything's laid out with cards. You're basically trying to move cubes around and pick up deliver them. The main thing is that each of the cities starts with 5 cubes, and they are both the provider of the cube, and then they want deliveries of other cubes on cards. And there's a delicate resource engine where each card, even though it starts with, I believe, 4 or 5 cubes, depending upon the number of players, it can only hold a maximum of 8. So you can't just keep on taking a bunch of cubes to a place that's paying a lot for it, because then it'll just fill up and not want any more cubes, period. So then you got to pick stuff off, and other people can come in and then make a delivery to that area as well. It also has an interesting Ticket to Ride card mechanic where you utilize those cards to either pick up or deliver the merchandise at a particular area. So you're doing a card collection mechanic in order to move and pick up your merchandise. And it also added gasoline to it. So if you run out of gas, which you also need to get from the cards, you need gas to move. And if you can't use it, you're done, and you have to be exact with your gas. So you have to be very strategic in that. So the combination of these 3 things make it a very interesting pick up and deliver game. It fits in a very small box, no bigger than this water bottle. But there's a lot of pick up and deliver inside of it, and a lot of just interesting and hard choices. So I would recommend it to anyone who is interested as an introduction to the genre.
Yeah, I think it works really well as a gateway to pick up and deliver. I didn't dislike the game, but to me, I just want a little bit more from a game. So not my favorite, but definitely a good game and definitely a good gateway. My number 3 is Steam, which is basically Martin Wallace designed like several train games, and like how Martin does is basically he designs a game and then he releases the streamlined version, and then he releases another streamlined version, and then another one. And Steam is kind of like the distilled version of all of his different train games. and it's very it still has like the core of all those systems, not so much the stock market, but the pick up and deliver and the network building aspect. And I really like it because it's it doesn't overwhelm me with rules. It's pretty simple and pretty easy to pick up and play. So I had a lot of fun. I'll probably get rid of it once I get a copy of my own game because I feel like I don't need a lot of these different network buildings and pick up and deliver games. But for right now, it's my favorite like train game, I guess.
Unfortunately, and I'm not sure how documented on this. Usually, when I play Martin Wallace games, I'm like, "Why, Martin Wallace? Why?" Is what I ask myself at certain points in the game. But
So you're not a fan of Steam?
I'm not a huge fan of Steam. I mean, I will give it this: you can eventually find a Steam app where that will make you like Steam at some point. I mean, there are a ton of them,
yeah.
and they all have slightly different rules. Yeah. But I'm just sort of.
I do like that about the system is that there's a million expansions and you can.
Yeah. And that's his biggest strength to me. And eventually, I think I played like 3 of them, and I know I have another 22 to play. And if someone else buys them, I will, or if you send them to me, I'll gladly play them. But until that day, number 2 game, you want to go first, or should I?
Sure. Istanbul, which I already talked about. It's there's a few other things going on, but it's mostly picking up things and bringing it to another side of the map and finding the most efficient route. Now it's not network building because you're not really building a network, although you do have these things you leave behind that you have to go pick up on occasion because if you run out of discs under your worker, then you can't move. So it's slightly network building, but it's mainly just find the most efficient route to deliver these things to this place and bring this place to a certain, bring whatever to a certain place and get a gem. And it's a race to 5 gems, 6 gems with the expansion. The highly recommended first expansion, the Coffee and Bakshish. I haven't played the other expansions because I feel like I'm just done. Like there's enough in Istanbul with the one expansion. You don't really need to add more tiles and more rules. So, but you can check them out if they got actually decent reviews for expansions, but I feel like I don't need any more. I'm happy with Istanbul the way it is. And what I love about Istanbul is that every game, the map is different because you do a random setup. And so you have to, figure out how you're going to make your deliveries in every game. So I really like just the replayability of it, I think is really high.
And I will say this, I believe Istanbul is a game that falls into the Suburbia category and maybe the 5 Tribes category. It is really not fun to play without its first expansion. Because there's some dominant strategies that are in it, and you need to play it with the first expansion. Because when I played the vanilla version of it, it was like, go get gems, dominant strategy, pretty much nothing else you can do about it. So everyone's now racing for gems, which
I also think
subtracted from it a bit.
I also think it's boring without the first expansion, to be honest. Like, I feel like
it has a dominant strategy. I mean,
no, that's not even why. I just don't think there's enough interesting things to do. It's like there's like 2 ways to get gems in the vanilla game, but the expansion adds like several more and makes the other ways more interesting or more viable. So it's needed for balance reasons, but for me, I think it also is needed for interest reasons because the game is a little too simplistic in its vanilla version. But I love it with the expansion. Mm-hmm. What's your number?
My number 2 is actually World's Gift to Colorblind Gamers, Coal Baron. So Coal Baron is a very interesting pick up and delivering game. It is, what's the best word to say it? Yes, you're just drinking water, dry. It's actually a very fun game. It's just the theme is that you're literally digging for coal in a mine shaft and then moving it up to deliver it to other places. Basically, the mechanics of the game are very good. It's designed by Kiesling and Kramer, who have done a lot of things. Vikings, Azul is, I believe, Kiesling's or Kramer's, one of their newest ones. Lancaster as well.
It's also a worker placement game, right?
And it's also sort of a worker placement game. In it, you have actions on the board which are available to everybody. And basically, when you take an action, you have to put you have each round 12 tokens. If you want to take an action, you put 1 token on that action to do it. If you want an action someone else has taken or yourself to repeat an action that you've taken, you have to just place tokens that exceeds the number. So there's 1 token already there, you have to place 2. There's 2 tokens there, you have to place 3. And so on and so on and so on. And everyone's dealing with the same resource pool of 12 tokens. I think that's probably the most interesting part about it, and the fact that it has like a elevator that moves up and down. Your coal mine has 5 levels, well, 4 levels deep in the top, and you'll constantly be adding coal to it in order to extract it out to fulfill orders that you already have. And orders, you start with one, and the rest you get from the board. And basically, you have this delicate balance. And each round, you will score for the first round, you'll score for 4 things, which is different types of coal, who has the most. And then each subsequent storing phase, you'll score for 4 additional things. So, first time you score for 4, next 8, the next 12. The best part about it, though, is the fact that all the actions you take are very intense, since you are competing with other people for it, and you have this fixed pool of 12 tokens. You have to do all your pickups, your deliveries, your movements, and gain all your orders, and do it within a limited time frame of 3 rounds. And overall, it makes for things being very tense. Probably the only problem that I have with it, 2 things. One is, for non-colorblind people, the game is very dull to look at and hard to distinguish the colors. Though I played it with Trey, and he was like, and other colorblind gamers, they're like, man, I can see everything. Everything's so distinctive. The other thing is that it's one of those games you probably cannot play much, maybe once the more, like, you can play a lot when you first started, and then you're like, okay, this game
Doesn't change enough
doesn't change enough
iterations.
ever between iterations. You're sort of stuck with it, and some dominant strategies up here. So,
All right. I've only played it once. I remember enjoying it, but I just haven't played it again, and that was years ago. So my number one is Age of Industry / Brass. It's based on the Brass system. Like I was saying earlier about Martin Wallace, he designs a game and then he distills it and distills
why,
it.
Martin Wallace? Why?
Most people actually prefer Brass, the less elegant version, but I have no idea why. To me, Age of Industry improves upon the Brass system in every way. Did I still back the Brass Kickstarter? Yes, because that Kickstarter looked awesome. Like, I might play a lot of Brass just because it looks so much better than any Martin Wallace game ever. But yeah, I do prefer the Age of Industry system as far as mechanics goes, because I just feel like he smoothed out all the rough edges that Brass had, and it just has become this really, really tight. It's a card-driven game, and it's a game where, and that's, I think most people who don't like those games, because it's like you're just dealt these cards and these are the actions you can take, and that's it. There's no way to trade your cards or like mill the deck or anything, and a lot of people hate that kind of restraint on what they can do. But to me, what I found it fascinating is that I love like figuring out what I can do with those constraints. So I just love the game, and it has several expansion maps, so you never get tired of it. Even though the map is static, I have 8 maps for it now, so there's plenty of replayability there for me. And yeah, I don't even think it showed up technically as a worker placement game it's worker placement as a pick up and deliver game in BGG, but it definitely is, because you build a network and you make factories that create goods, and then you take an action to deliver those goods. So I don't know why it's not considered pick up and deliver, but whatever. I still think it is, so I put it as my number one.
Because you can't. Because the choices are just dealt to you. That's probably the main reason. But I mean, I guess it's all like that. I'm not going to go into my love of and hate of Martin Wallace. Anyway, my number one game is Iron Dragon, which is the crown jewel of the Crown Rail system. I actually have tried to get Trey to play this several times, and he hates it. But it is Crown Rail.
I never played it.
Oh.
No, the Crown Rails game we played was one of the European ones. Because I was somewhere in Eastern Europe when that snowstorm made me lose a turn, essentially, and made me quit Crown Rails forever.
So Iron Dragon is a little bit different from all the Crown Rails. It is a best of Crown Rail system, and it's done its best to alleviate some of the problems. Since it's a completely fantasy map, you're basically delivering wands to wizards and things of that nature. It has like different engineers you can do that gives you advantages over different terrain. It has a oversea mechanic where you can literally sort of go to a ferry and then go to overseas. You have an underground mechanic where you're dealing with ogres and trolls in order to bribe them to dig through their area and to move goods through there. And most of all, it's just sort of like they've arranged the map in such a way where all the letters of a certain country are together, and they're very easy to find. It has a grid system and everything. So I would just say it's sort of like the pinnacle of the Crown Rails system, and it's very fun to play. Like many Crown Rails, you literally have to draw your network on the board, so it changes every game. Just don't forget to erase it. And it's overall just a great game and very fun to play. Its main detractors are that it can be long, and if you like every Crown Rails, if you haven't played it before, then routing is difficult. And if you run out of money in that game, it is unforgiving. You just have lost.
Nice. I like it. All right. So, games we've been playing lately. I just actually got back from a con yesterday. It was just a local weekend con that was Friday and Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I got to play a bunch of new games. So, I'll start out talking about number 9, which is NMBR, and then the number 9 if you're trying to look it up. They just wanted to make it as hard as possible to find, I guess. Mm-hmm. It is a really, really good gateway game. Basically, you have like these number tiles that are in different shapes, and you pull a card from a deck, and that tells all the players what tile they have to place. And so it's basically like Tetris, but you're also creating like bases on the table, and then you want to put tiles on top of the tiles you previously placed. So it's kind of like you're building a pyramid with these different shapes. It's really, really interesting if you like spatial puzzles. The only real big thing I have against it is that it only plays up to 4 players. It could play infinite players because it's basically, you pull a card and then everybody has to place the same tile. So this kind of gateway style game, why would they cap it at 4? I don't know. Like, I almost want to wait till it's on sale and buy 2 copies of the game and be like, hey, I have a gateway game that plays 8 players in 10 minutes. That's really good while you're waiting around for people to show up at game day. So I think it's a really good gateway game, but I might not buy it until I can get 2 copies because 1 copy is just not really going to be good. Especially, it's a really good family game too. Like, you can teach this to anyone in your family who doesn't even like board games and they can play it. But again, only plays 4 players. So, yeah. What have you been playing?
Keeping in line with very short games, I played a social game called 5 Second Rule, which is basically a party game. In it, you have a cards and you have a 5-second timer, and you have 5 seconds to name whatever is on the card. So we could actually play it right now. So you have 5 seconds, Trey, to name 3 board games you own.
Lord of the Rings, Lancaster, Hey, That's My Fish.
Yes.
I literally just read the things that the phone is balancing
right.
on.
So basically, that's how the game works. You turn over a timer and you go from there. And I guess it's sort of there. You could play the game. We actually played it literally standing up as a filler, waiting for other people to finish their game, and that was.
So it's also a game you don't have to own.
You don't have to own. You really, as you can see, you can just make up your own questions. It's very similar to Headbands in the fact that you could literally play it while you're playing another game if you wish to, or just I don't know. I don't know why this is a game, but this is a good idea type of game. So there you go.
Interesting. So I played a game I never thought I'd have a chance to play because I had zero interest in playing any of the Fast Forward series from Friedman Freese because I watched the reviews for all these games and generally they got pretty poor reviews and also they didn't look interesting. So, but I was at a gaming con and what I like to do at gaming cons is just play as many new games as I can. And so someone had that, and we only had 10 minutes. The con was shutting down, so I was like, all right, I heard this is fast. Let's play that. Mm-hmm. So basically what you do in that game is that it's a deck of cards that's numbered 1 to 150 or something like that. And the deck has to be ordered in 1 through whatever number every time, which is also a big problem because when setup is... or breakdown is terrible. Setup is great. It's already set up. You just put it on the table. But at the end of the game, you're playing this game where, like... It's the game after the game where you have to put all the cards in order. Terrible.
I mean, anyway. I love that, man. It's just like Legendary. Continue.
But there's no rule book. It's literally just a deck of cards, and the rules are printed on the cards, which I'm going to go into in much more detail how much I hate the system when I talk about this war of mine in a minute. But,
we can get yes. No, we can skip. I will go straight to this war of mine.
No, well, okay. So the problem is like. even though it's the simplest of games, what I don't want to do is figure out rules when I'm sitting at a table playing a game. But this game, like every 10 cards, you have a new rule that you have to add to the game. And so you have to sit there and read the card to the table, and then everybody at the table talks about how this rule works until we come to a consensus like, oh, that's how it works. Like, it brings the game flow to a screeching halt. And I was actually having a lot of fun with the actual game. It's kind of like a simple game of chicken where like you attack people's fortresses with cards. Oh, that's spoiler. Sorry, I spoiled Fast Forward because it tells you on like the second card.
Oh,
But basically you're playing cards to like steal people's fortresses from them, and it's kind of like you don't know what I'm attacking you with, and I don't know what you're defending with. So it's a game of chicken. But and the gameplay itself is actually pretty interesting. But I hated learning the rules the way that it is in that game so much that I can't really recommend it.
Yeah, that seems to be his thing lately. I mean, you know, everyone's like, ooh, 504. It's
Oh my
really
God.
ingenious. I'm like, this is a...
That would be even worse. It's like, let's figure out what we're playing and then spend 30 minutes figuring out how this game plays before we play it. Oh my God.
Anyway, let's go straight to This War of Mine, because I did play that with Trey. At least I tried to. You know, I don't know if it was pretty late or if the game was just pretty not fun, but I ended up falling asleep in the game. I had to go home. I'm like, every time we started to move and do something, we needed to learn something different or go and look at the rules. And admittedly, it might have been better had someone played a scenario once. This was all our first game, but like you said, it's like we keep on getting to points and opening up something, and then it's either a roadblock or we're just going to randomly go through 10 cards and not be able to get through all of them, and now we're dead, or we've gone and made this dramatic waste of time, and some character that we just picked up is going to die, so we're going to just keep on killing people. And somehow it's supposed to be fun when you are going through a survival game and everyone just keeps on dying. But I'm not really a big XCOM player, and I don't like that system in general. And it's even worse in the board game, because you know you have upkeep and then they're gone.
So my problems in the game actually have nothing to do with that. I'm fine with people dying. I love XCOM, and I love the video game This War of Mine that also has the same problem where like you constantly getting new characters and they just die because it's hard to keep up with all their needs. My problem with This War of Mine is like exactly what I said about Fast Forward, where you're constantly learning the rules of the game as the game is happening, and so you have to sit there and figure out what the rules mean at the table, and it just brings, again, the gameplay to a screeching halt, because like we're having fun, or I was having fun. I actually really loved This War of Mine at first when we first started playing it, because I'm like, oh, we have this cool house, and we have all these things to manage, and we have to get resources to keep our guys alive, and we have to go out on these expeditions, and blah, blah, blah. And it was actually, the way everything kind of worked, I was having a lot of fun. But the more we played it, it didn't stop. We played this game for like 6 hours total, 3 the first night, and then we played 3 more the other night. And it was like, it never stopped. We did not stop learning rules after 6 hours of gameplay, because it would, like, every 20 minutes without fail, we'd end up in some situation where we had to learn something else about how to play the game that we've been trying to play for 6 hours. And it's just stop. Just no publisher release games like this. Like, you have to give us the rules up front so that at least one person at the table should know the rule, so that when we don't have to teach the whole game, but there should be someone at the table who had the knowledge of knowing what the rule is and how it works in the game and what it means, so that the gameplay doesn't get brought to the screeching halt while you figure out what it means as a committee. Mm-hmm. You know?
I mean, this is also a problem with some of the legacy games that we play, because they integrate new rules. But usually, and I think Pandemic does the best job of this, it's at the end of the scenario, right, and then you have a whole other time to discuss what's going to happen next, or you have this whole preparation phase where you're gearing up. And, you know, the one thing I had my complaint about This War of Mine was the fact that I can't prepare for anything. I don't know if these people are coming. I can't even build up resources for the characters I was randomly dealt in the first place to keep them alive if I don't want someone there. So I just was...
And that brings me to my second criticism of the game, whereas, you know, I do like experience games when you have some control, but I do... The more I play This War of Mine, the more I got a feeling it's one of those games that happens to you instead of you happening to instead of you playing the game, it's playing you. I felt that way about Fallout, where you pull the card, you make a decision, and then some random thing happens. And this War of Mine, I thought was interesting enough to overcome that, or at least gave you enough options where it didn't bother me. But the more I played it, it was just more and more of that. In fact, it just got worse. It was like every few seconds we were just making a decision, and something happened, or we didn't make a decision. We had to roll a die, and the die determined what happened to us. So just like, there's in the 6 hours we played of War of Mine, we probably made 30 decisions, right? But of those decisions that we made, so many of them were affected by the die roll, or just some random event happened to us based on what happened in the journal. So I didn't feel like we were playing the game. I just felt like we sometimes made decisions and sometimes rolled poorly or well, and then something happens, either good or bad. And so yeah, it was frustrating because I really liked the video game, but I feel like it did a poor job of you feel like you have control in the video game, and I didn't feel like we had much control in the board game, unfortunately.
Segueing into one of the games where disasters happen, we'll have this is our new old is new again segment. I recently had the opportunity this week to play Dominant Species.
Oh.
6-player.
I wasn't in this game.
No, he was not. Now, it's been a long time since I played Dominant Species, mainly because of its
length
on the one thing. It has a lot of upkeep, which is fairly difficult.
AP.
It does have a lot of AP as well. And it also, we had, I believe, 2 or 3 new players, if not, 3 new players.
You just push them into the deep end.
Yes.
A 6-player Dominant Species. Have fun. Did you at least take out the extra worker cards?
We did not.
Oh my god. How long did this game take?
It almost finished, but it did not quite. But the
Y'all didn't even finish?
We were close.
Oh no!
We were close. I think I was going to win. It ended up we did a final scoring at the end, and the 3 people who had played before were 1 point away from each other. I think we had 88, 87, 86, and the new players were So
you just didn't get to the last round.
Yeah, we just didn't get to but we scored the last round. We just didn't actually play it.
Yeah.
For those who are unfamiliar with Dominant Species, what's the best way to say it? Oh, this is a worker placement war game. Where it doesn't seem like a war game, but it is. And
it doesn't seem like a worker placement game, but it is.
It's by Chad Jensen, the guy who recently played Welcome to Centerville. I actually think Dominant Species is a masterpiece of a game. Mm-hmm. It is basically you are randomly given one of 6 creatures or species of creatures, and you are meant to sort of guide them through the thrones of evolution, and you get victory points for it. And ultimately, you're trying to dominate a certain area. And you have 2 systems that are working. One is you score points by being the most fertile species with the most cubes, and then you score domination by having the most of your food source in an area. So you might not have a lot of cubes in the area, but if you have all the power that's over the area because you've surrounded it with enough of your resources on both your board and on the game board, then you dominate. I can't explain much for it, but
it's a fascinating system.
It's a wholly unique system. It is brutal.
It's probably better as a video game because of the upkeep, honestly.
Yeah.
But
basically, in the game, being first in domination means you can do stuff like, drop an asteroid on people, kill off all their food source, or you can gain extra actions off other people. A lot of interesting things. You remember it, Trey, right?
Oh yeah, I've played it many times. It's a really good game. I like it a lot.
Yeah, but definitely great game. So.
All right. Let me just briefly talk about Unlock. We played 2 more scenarios of Unlock, Squeak and Sausage, and the Formula. The Formula I thought was really solid and really good. I had no complaints about that. Squeak and Sausage has 1 puzzle in it that was... it's the other way around. Squeak and Sausage, solid, no problems. The Formula had 1 puzzle in it that was just out of left field, and we almost never have to use hints in these games, and we had to use all the hints because there was just no way... Turns out, the whole problem was the person who was in charge of putting the cards out didn't put one of the cards out. So, not of. It was a kind of a ruined experience for us, but it was not due to the game.
Pray
So
tell, was it Emma?
no, it was Ben.
It was
No,
Ben.
Emma is the puzzle solver.
Oh yeah, Emma has one.
Emma solves all the puzzles in those games.
It would be Ben. I mean, we can just blame Ben. We blame
Yeah.
Ben for not even being here today. So.
Exactly, the most critical gamer. I'm being critical of him. All right, do you have anything else?
I played a social collusion game called Dead Last. This game was so bad, we played it at the.
We played that game a long time ago.
Yeah, we played it a long time ago, and then we played it again recently at TM
Why?
Victory, the new board game cafe that opened up. Basically, it's a social collusion game. It plays up to 10 people, and you just basically have to decide who is going to die. And, it's sort of like you play or eliminate to the point where it's a heads-up round, and then the two people who are left do a heads-up battle for gold, which is a different mechanic altogether. So you put down the cards you use in the first place, and you go to this little side game just between two people, and the other 8 people are watching you while you do this, and then you have to rinse and repeat that same system until someone gets up to 25 points. Terrible. We did one round, we're like, we are all quitting this game.
As a novelty, it worked okay. Like, I enjoyed the first couple times I played, but it gets real repetitive real fast, and there's just not much there,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I mean, something with the groupthink mindset is just bad, and you feel bad about playing it because it's like, oh, I arbitrarily choose you to die in the beginning of the game, and then, oh, you're in the lead, so we're going to just arbitrarily kill you. So it has all the problems of, like, base Catan and all the problems of just being a bad person in today's society under Donald Trump. So, anyways.
Hey, we're not supposed to be a political show.
Oh, we're not.
All right. I guess I'll talk about Temporal Odyssey, which is a game from a friend of mine. It's just a heads-up card game, but it has some real interesting mechanisms where when you get cards, you're adding cards to your deck, and then you're using them to attack your opponent. Something you've seen many times. But the interesting thing about his game is that when you gain cards to your hand or to your deck, you get to pull from 3 different decks, and so depending on what you're trying to do, if you want more attack or you want more items or whatever, you can customize kind of what deck you're pulling from. And since there's not like tableaus of cards to pick from, the game is actually pretty short. So if you like heads-up games that are fairly short but give you interesting decisions, like something like Star Realms or Hero Realms, then Temporal Odyssey, definitely check it out. It's probably a step up from that. It's a little bit longer, but it's also a little bit more strategic, and you have a little bit more control. So yeah, check it out.
We're getting the time cue here, so you want to end it at this?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
you
we
want
can
to
end
go
it. I have other things to talk about,
Same here.
but I can save it for another time. Thanks for joining us. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We are on YouTube and Twitter at Eternally Bored. That's board as in board games. Mm-hmm. And our website is www.eternallybored.com. Until next time, we're eternally bored, so you don't have to be. Bye.